satisfies? You believe in a God that opens eyes? You believe in a God that tells you lies? Or do you believe in me? Do you believe in a God that brings you down? Do you believe in a God that wears the ground? Do you believe in a God that makes you bow? Or do you believe in me? Do you believe in a God that satisfies? You believe in a God that opens eyes? You believe in a God that tells you lies? Or do you believe in me? Do you believe in a God that brings you down? Do you believe in a God that wears the ground? Do you believe in a God that makes you bow? Or do you believe in me?
It's Beyond Common Sense. It's Lanny Sense with Lanny Swerdlow, KCAA's resident gay, woke, liberal, pot-smoking, race-mixing, tree-hugging, left-handed, science-affirming, Jewish, humanist, atheist, a white evangelical Christian nationalist, worst nightmare. And welcome to tonight's show here on KCA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind, and we're the show that leaves no gender behind. And with me tonight, as always, is my favorite progressive curmudgeon, Sam Clowder. Sam, wonderful to have you here again with us.
Thank you, Lanny.
Did you have a good week?
Up and down.
Up and down. Well, more up, more down. What's the frequency?
More up. I've been extremely busy organizing my life and getting prepared to move out of Los Angeles.
As you still organizing your life. I guess that's how you know you're still alive. You're organized. When you stop organizing your life, that's a bad sign.
Yes,
that's a bad sign. Okay. Hey, listen. I had an interesting week. My car yellow engine check engine light came on, and worst of all, it was blinking. That means you've got some big problems. And as it turns out, I do have big problems. I need to replace the engine in my car. I cannot believe it. Oh, well, but that's life. It's got 200,000 miles, so I shouldn't complain, I guess. Anyway,
replace what?
My engine in my car.
What kind of car is it?
It's a Hyundai Elantra. It's been a wonderful car until now. Now
what year?
So 2014. But I got 200,000 miles on it.
That's not $20,000. Is that what somebody quoted you?
No, $3,000.
$3,000. Right. Okay.
Yeah. And it comes with a 3-year warranty. So, all right, got to be done. You've got to have a car. You can't get around without a car. You know, it's really dependent. You know how dependent on cars we all are. Very few people can survive without a car, evidenced by the fact that most people have access to a car. So it's just a fact of life, like air. But you know, speaking about air, one of the facts, let's get to one of the big news here in Southern California is this horrible fire that seems to be going on and on and on. The winds go down, the winds go back up. I guess the winds are back up tonight, and the progress they're made, they're just it's really tragic. You know, what's it? 25,000 homes have been destroyed. $150 billion in damages. Over 20 people have died. And what's really is how it's being politicized. It's being politicized with the Trump and the Republicans bearing down and blaming Governor Newsom. Like Governor Newsom created the 85-mile-per-hour winds and the drought that we're having. It's like, let's blame Governor DeSantis for the hurricanes that plow into Florida every year.
I can't figure out how the Democrats are in charge or control the rain in Florida, and they can't control the rain in California.
Yeah. Problem is, we need some rain right now, but we're not getting any. So, well, they'll just keep fighting it. You know, Canada and Mexico have sent firefighters to help the United States. Help California. And they've also Canada has these big, what they're called super scooper planes that actually fly over the ocean and scoop up, God knows how much water, and then fly over somewhere in the fire and put it out. So we're very lucky to have neighbors like Canada and Mexico that are willing to pitch in and give us a hand. What I'm concerned with, the Republicans have been making some noises that they're going to withhold federal disaster relief from California if they because they don't approve of the way our water management, like there's plenty of water for the fire. It's getting it there. Is you can't run hoses there when they're so there's getting it there is a problem. But that's what these big super scoopers do, and this kind of stuff. So they want to withhold federal funds from the victims of this fire because they don't approve of what Newsom has done and Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, done. Never mind that when all the hurricanes struck Florida or the disasters that struck Texas, I don't remember anybody ever saying, "Oh, we're going to withhold funds from Florida because we don't like what they've done politically." But that's what Republicans do, and it's going to be amazing. And I'm just wondering, I wouldn't be surprised if Trump is going to be issuing over 100, so he says, executive orders the first day in office. And I'm just wondering if some of these are going to be targeting blue states, withholding funds from blue states and saying, hey, they don't need the money, we're going to give it to the red states who need the money more than the blue states. And it's getting really, I've seen this thing, the blue states are going to have to do something to stand up to this guy because he's going to be going after the blue states. And I think the best thing I've heard was from the leader of the Green Party in Canada. And she invited California, Oregon, and Nevada to join Canada and leave the United States. She pointed out that they have health care and they have gun control laws and this type of thing. And, it might not be a bad thing. The West Coast and the Northeast part of the United States becomes part of Canada. And the country would really suffer badly because so much of the money that funds the red states comes from the blue states. Almost all the blue states put in significantly more money, federal money, than they get back from the feds, whereas the red states put in significantly less money into the federal government than they get back out. So they are sucking at the nipples or the tits or whatever of the blue states, and we're feeding them, and they just want to dump on us. And I think there's a point where we're going to have to say something. We're not going to fund you anymore. I don't know if we can do that. I don't know. Governor Newsom says, hey, people, don't pay your federal tax. Or pay your federal tax, but put it in an account and hold it there until they start treating us, so they don't. Because it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of years of how they try to. Trump is all about revenge, and he's certainly not going to like any of the states that didn't vote for him. And he's going to like the states that did. So it'll be interesting to see how the feds go. And I'm going to be interested to see how many of his executive orders have something to do with blue states versus red states. I think we would all be surprised. What do you think you might see in the directive orders? What do you think he might be issuing, Sam?
I made this prediction 2 or 3 weeks ago that I expect Trump to deny federal aid to California. Mm-hmm. To completely overturn Biden's executive order for the 6 month to cover all the losses for 6 months. Look, yeah. Trump can get by with anything, and the Democrats let him do it. This country, if it's going to be based on law and order, you have to bring people through the legal system faster than they did 4 years. The Democrats dragged their feet. They took too much time. Now Trump is getting by with everything. He will be president for 4 years, and by the time that's over, nobody's going to prosecute him. This man has overturned the entire rule of law in this country, and I no longer respect this country. I despise this nation for being such a hypocrite. And one of the most impressive things someone said to me recently was, the United States is not a nation. It's not a country. The United States is a business. It's nothing but money. Okay. I've been saying this since I learned it 15 years ago, that there is no liberty and justice for all. Liberty and justice are commodities for sale. And while you say black and brown people of color go to prison more often than white people, that's because they don't have the money that white people do. Because the only color that counts in court is green. Everything in this country is for sale. And I'm fed up with it. I can't stand it anymore. I'm getting the hell out of the United States, and I may not come back. I just, but I mean, I expected this from the Republicans, Lanny, ever since Nixon. I was a Republican. Well, I grew up a Republican, an Ike fan, a Goldwater fan. I switched over the Vietnam War, and Nixon resigned in dishonor.
Mm-hmm.
Reagan screwed this company. George W. Screwed this country. The Republicans have always been in it for money and in it for themselves. But I never thought the Democrats would be such wimps as they are. The Democrats have no guts, no courage. They couldn't follow through with prosecuting Trump fast enough. It's just
that was a big.
I'm out of it. I'm totally out. I started in politics on my own 1960, and I'm done. I'm finished because I worked with the Democrats all these years because they were the best option. They were the best alternative, but they haven't done shit as far as prosecuting Trump and putting him in jail. And what nobody talks about now is convicted felon is not allowed to be a president. Okay, back in the days when Trump was going to run for president, they were saying, well, you can't prevent someone from running. The law doesn't prevent someone from running for president who's a convicted felon. But the Constitution specifically prohibits a convicted felon from being president of the United States. So the Constitution has been shredded. The Constitution is useless. The courts are useless. The Supreme Court's useless. It's all over. And the only thing that might restore law and order is the most radical act of illegal and disorder that could be, and that's a civil war. I don't see anything bright in the future of the United States anymore, and I can't see. Somebody show me. I don't see anything.
Well, we have like governors, like Governor Westmore in Maryland. We have still the governor Weiss in Minnesota. We have Governor Newsom here in California. We have governors in many of the states who are doing those kind of things that are going to make things better. It's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next 2 years, because one of the major reason that everybody, when they in poll after poll after poll, the reason people voted for Republicans is because they were dissatisfied with the economy. They were dissatisfied with inflation. And the fact is that inflation was going down under Biden. Biden had gotten inflation, which was running 8-9% because of all the problems from COVID and the stimulus of the economy and the supply chain tied up and all that kind of stuff, just sent prices through the roof. Not through the roof. I mean, all right, 8-9%. And now he got it down to about under 3%, getting it down to that magic figure of 2%. And it didn't seem to sink into people. The question is now, what's going to happen under Trump? Are prices going to go back up? I think they're going to go back up with the tariffs and all this kind of stuff. We're going to see them go up quite a bit. And the question is, will people then get upset with Trump
why do we
that he let them down?
Why does it matter? I mean, there's not much the president can do about the economy, but people vote thinking that it's going to make them rich. Now, that's not what government's supposed to do. Government is supposed to create a level playing field where everybody has equal opportunity. Government is supposed to be working for the people, not working for the people's money. This vision of a shining city on a hill is long dimmed out. I've never understood that until recently, that Americans are so greedy, all they vote for is money.
Well,
and
this whole election is about the price of eggs. And guess what? Eggs are not going down in price. They're going back. And it has nothing to do with the president. It has to do with bird flu, which is killing off the flocks and all this kind of stuff. But people don't seem to recognize that kind of stuff.
To take care of the bigger issues, those things would be taken care of. Those things would work out.
Hey, listen, if you have some issues you want to talk about here on the show, give us a call. Our phone lines are now open. They were down for a while. Hopefully, they are back up and running. Eric sent me a text that, yes, they should be up and running. So give us a call. We'd love to talk with you at 909-383-1000 or 909-383-9000. And give us a call, whatever you want to talk about. You want to come about something we've been talking about, let's hit it up. If you got something penned up you'd like to get out there and think people should be talking about, we'd love to hear from you. So give us a call, 909-383-1000, 909-383-9000. Yeah, and and what's really interesting is that in Canada, the Green Party chief asked California and Oregon and Washington to move into Canada. They're having some problems right there now too. But I don't hear of people flocking from Canada to come to the United States. It's still more people from the United States going up into Canada. Hey, you thinking of moving? How come you're going to move to South America and not move to Canada?
Because Canada is cold and Canada is expensive.
Yes, it's true. It is cold and it is expensive. Yeah, it's true. I've been up there. It's not
I had
cheap
an
to
uncle
live
who
there.
moved there. My mother's brother, he grew up with polio, and he recovered from it, fought in the Korean War, and he had a lot of great jobs, designed a lot of the golf courses out there in Palm Springs where you're at, Lanny. And then in the 1970s, he left. He went to Canada, and he loved it. And he renounced his American citizenship and lived in Canada for the rest of his life. And the number one thing that he liked about it was the healthcare system. But the people are so friendly. And they are in Latin American countries too.
Yeah.
One of the biggest problems we have here is homelessness and poverty. And that doesn't exist in Mexico and Latin America. And it took me a long time to figure that out because these countries are a lot poorer in money than the United States is. And I learned recently that if a family lets one of their own go homeless, kick him out, he sleeps on the street, the family is dishonored. The community ostracizes that family. Their family is what it's all about. Quite often we here in the United States have made fun of immigrants sleeping 8 and 10 to a room. That's family.
Yeah.
They're not just doing it for economic reasons. They're doing it to support each other. So I'm going to tell you right now, there are more homeless people camped out on the streets of Southern California than there are in the cities of all the countries from Mexico down to the tip of Argentina. It doesn't exist. And the reason it doesn't exist, their priority is people. Their priority is family, not money. And this is not the case in the United States, and I don't know that it ever has been.
Yeah.
I think historically it was up through the Great Depression and through the economic boom of World War II in the 1950s. But since then, I don't think it's been that way at all, and it's just gotten worse.
California is home to almost 1/3 of all the homeless people in the United States, and they come here because the weather's nice. The weather's better. If you're going to have to be on the streets, you don't want to be in North Dakota. And
prior to Reagan's being governor, they had a huge mental health system with a lot of mental hospitals, and that's generally where homeless people went.
And they closed.
But that
he closed
doesn't exist anymore.
That's right. All those
can
people.
you imagine? Think of Los Angeles, where there's not a single person camping in a tent on the street. No dilapidated RVs. No junk cars that people are sleeping in. And if you can think of it like that, then you could go back in the 60s and 70s and remember what it was like.
Yeah.
That's what Latin America is. Every single country throughout Latin America is that way.
Well, it's a major problem that we need to address way better than we're doing. I would like to mention one interesting story I came across in the Washington Post about the Governor Kristi Noem. Um, she's a two-term Republican governor. She's one of Donald Trump's staunchest allies, and she is now the president-elect's pick to head the Department of Homeland Security, the massive $100 billion federal agency that oversees borders, disaster response, and federal protection. What's interesting that this article pointed out was that in her own state, she is banned from setting foot on tribal lands. The 9 nations whose reservations cover about 12% of South Dakota blocked Noem last year because of her allegation that cartels operate there and that tribal leaders are somehow complicit, all of which, of course, the leaders deny. What they see as Noem's penchant for exaggeration and disrespect for Native Americans could presage trouble in her coming federal role. Both are likely to be raised when her confirmation hearing is going to be held on Friday. Wayne Dochino, a former tribal council representative for the Cheyenne River Sioux, calls the ban, quote, a very telling action that at the core goes to Governor Noem's disregard for tribal sovereignty and a lack of understanding about how borders work. She lacks a fundamental understanding about how to work across any type of border, be it the United States border with Mexico or the native nations within her own state, end quote. How can you imagine that if you're a governor state and you are banned from going into any of the native reservations that are on your state? What kind of rapport has she developed with these? And it shows her disrespect and her disregard for people who are not, shall I say it, white and conservative. Well, okay.
I don't blame them.
Yeah.
It sounds like to me, but gosh, I mean, how can we point the fingers at Republicans when our own Democrats don't do shit?
Yeah.
See, this is what I keep coming back to. Trump violated all these laws before he ran the first time. He violated all these laws when he was president. And then we had a 4-year window. And what happened?
Yeah.
Everything fell apart.
We didn't take
the
advantage.
Democrats couldn't. It's not just the Democrats, but law enforcement.
Well, it was the same with Barack Obama. When he got elected in 2012, he had a Democratic Congress, and they didn't. The problem was they tried to work with Republicans, and they didn't get anywhere. And then in 2014, the Republicans took control. The same thing happened with Biden. When he was elected in 2020, he had a Democratic Congress, but he lost it in 2022. And when they have the power to do these things, when they have the power to change the Supreme Court and all this kind of stuff, they just didn't. And it's going to be interesting to see now that the Republicans have a control of the House, control of the Senate. We're going to see just how much they are willing to do things that are upsetting to Democrats and that the Democrats wouldn't do. I wouldn't be surprised if because the Democrats still have whole veto power in the Senate. I wouldn't be surprised if the Republicans end the veto in the Senate, so they don't need to have to worry to get 60 Republicans anymore, 60 senators to vote on a bill. I bet you they get rid of it, and they're going to scuttle. And the Democrats never did that, and that's one of the consequences why Biden had trouble getting some of his bills passed. It's really amazing how much he did get passed. Yeah.
I don't know what to say. I'm totally out of it now.
Yeah, you totally
out of it. Straightly partisan, but I'm not partisan anymore because I think that the Democrats had an opportunity. I'm not just talking about in government, Lanny. I'm talking about prosecuting and sentencing Trump and putting him in prison for what he did. And because he did it and he got by with it, law doesn't matter anymore. There's no law that you can't break and get by with, and Trump has proven that. Now he's made the president above the law, And
Well,
keep in mind, we may or may not know what these executive orders are that he's coming in with, but the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that he's exempt. He can do anything he wants as president, and he's
that's
exempt
right.
from prosecution. So if he orders, if he collects the vigilantes from his group and tells them to go out and kill the gays and the lesbians and the cross dressers and the liberals, he can't be prosecuted for it
That's right.
because he's been cleared by the U.S. Supreme Court. He's immune. He's above the law. It's not a pleasant scenario.
No, not at all. And
And
he's
even after 4 years, as you say, if he turns martial law and the military let him do it, then he might stay in past 4 years.
well, yeah,
I don't see any. There's many things that I would say if this wasn't a radio show in public. And
the thing is, there's going to be.
I've heard a lot of scenarios, but I won't repeat many of them because they are all extremely dismal. And I just don't see a bright future for the United States anymore.
There's going to be protests when the prices don't go down and prices start going up again. I believe there's going to be massive protests, and Trump is going to send the military and the National Guard and the local police after the protesters, and he's going to shut them down, arrest them, put them in jail, beat them up, and all this kind of stuff. And
this is a scenario that I foresee. Earlier last year, let us review the tremendous uproar about Hamas being about the Jews committing genocide against the Palestinians while they were chasing Hamas. Now they took over some campuses, and governors had to send in the National Guard. Even here at UCLA, the police had to quell riots. Now those were kind of soft. The students didn't have any weapons. They were just demonstrating. But now you have Trump coming in, who believes that Palestinians should not exist. And when you come next spring, when the thaw is over, we're going to have demonstrations from the students. And if they are pushed off campus, the demonstrations will continue. I can see a summer full of riots that goes way beyond what 1968 was. And then if the military gets involved, I can see where many liberals will come forward into the streets with guns, and we will have a hot civil war on our hands.
You think liberals have guns? I don't know.
Hey, Lanny,
that's a good question.
I don't know that there's a more bleeding heart liberal than me, and I've had a loaded handgun by my bed for the last few years. And I grew up with guns. I brought one from Texas that my father-in-law gave me. And since I moved to California from Texas in 1985, there's been a short period that I did not have a handgun available. And guess what? If I say this, and in a group of people, and I get chastised for it, I sit there and take it, because the quiet ones are the ones who have guns. So yeah, let me say this. I'll tell you that I believe 50% of the bleeding heart liberal Democrats have guns at home. They take care of them. They keep them locked up. They don't talk about it. They don't brandish them. They don't tell anyone about it. They're not AK-47s. They're hunting rifles and pistols for self-defense. Lanny, back in the day when Nixon wanted to declare martial law and stay in the White House, he was talked out of it on the basis that too many Americans with guns would take to the streets, and that's why Nixon quit. He couldn't stay there for that reason alone, because he wanted to, and the generals talked him out of it. Now, again, I mean, what's going to happen if Trump orders the military to go out in the streets? I don't think they're going to do it. I think the generals will revolt. What's he going to do? Fire the generals and keep elevating on all of them until he gets a bunch of privates who are generals that are going to do what he says? By then, you've decimated the armed services.
Do you really think the generals would defy what the
we become
president tells them to
extremely
do?
vulnerable to Russia and China? What?
Do you really think the generals would defy what the president tells them to do? I mean, they're not supposed to. He's a commander in chief. He tells the generals what to do. It gets to a bad situation when the commander, when they.
Yes, what? Lanny. During Trump's term, they did that. They did it quietly and silently. Trump told them to do things, and they just found a way to get around it.
Well, I don't know if the MAGA people in the Congress and stuff will be quiet about it. They'll make a big stink out of it.
What are they going to do? Pick up the guns and go to the streets themselves?
I don't know. But listen, I want to. Here's some.
I mean, Antifa. Okay, Antifa still exists. Antifa still exists and it's strong. Earth First still exists, and it's strong.
Here's some good news that some things can be done. And in the state of Virginia, even though they got this Youngkin, the governor, they mistakenly elected him. The House, both states' legislatures are Democrat controlled. Barely, but they are controlled by the Democrats, and they are taking action. When the Virginia House of Delegates, this is reported in the Washington Post, when the Virginia House of Delegates on Tuesday, that's today, took up a proposed constitutional amendment to automatically restore felon voting rights, one politically prominent person was bound to come up and debate. In, quote, in 6 days, a felon will become president of this nation. Marcia S. Cia Price, Democrat from Newport News, said as Republicans pushed back against the measure, the glaring hypocrisy is not lost on us. The General Assembly leaped right into some of the most divisive and ideological issues of the year on only the second full day of the session. Besides felon rights restoration, the House also took up constitutional amendments to protect same-sex marriage and the right to an abortion. And it goes on for all the things here. So there are legislators, state legislatures that are going to fight back on that. And one of the things that's interesting here in California is Newsom actually convened the California state legislature to devise ways of countering what the Republicans and Trump are going to be trying to do. So it's there. And what's going to be interesting to see is the contrast between what's happening once again in the blue states and what is happening in the red states. And I think the blue states, well, right now, if you've seen the charts, I mean, the blue states put in more money to the federal government they get back. They have higher health scores. The top people are in the blue states. Longevity, you're more likely to live a longer life if you live in a blue state than if you live in a red state. If you're a woman, you're more likely to have a successful pregnancy if you live in a blue state than if you live in a red state. All these things, it's so much better to live in a blue state, and I think that's going to become. Even though I think Trump and the Republicans are going to try to attack the blue states, I don't think they're going to succeed, and people are going to will much more starkly see the differences between red and blue states. And if the economy, and I think the economy is going to tank under Trump with his tariffs and tax cuts for the wealthy and getting rid of the immigrants and this kind of stuff, I think it's going to tank the economy of this country, and people are going to get very upset. And that's what I'm going to think when people start seeing everything they got promised by Trump doesn't come true, especially if he starts cutting, Obamacare and all this kind of stuff. People start losing their health care. They start losing some of their food stamp programs and this kind of stuff because these red states are dependent on these programs, more so than the blue states are. And if they start losing them, you're going to have some very upset people. And hopefully the Democrats will be fostering that disappointment and get these people to get active and to do something about it. So when 2026 comes around, we can turn everything around. It wouldn't take much. a difference in votes to turn the legislature, the Senate and the Assembly, the House of Representatives, back to the Democrats.
There's no soul in it anymore. There's no empathy. There's no caring for each other. It's not this is not a human country.
Well,
This has been such a wartime economy with the genocide against the Native Americans and the slavery of Chinese in California and slavery of African Americans and mistreatment of Mexicans and Latins. It's all coming home. It's all coming home. And it's not pretty now, and it's not going to get any prettier in the near future.
Well, I agree. It's not pretty now, but I'm a little more. I think the Republicans are going to blow things up so badly that the people are going to come to their senses, but we'll see. We'll see.
But
maybe they won't come to their senses.
The people who voted for Trump don't have any senses to come to.
No, I disagree. These people, the number one reason people voted for Trump had to do with the economy. Just like Bill Clinton says, it's the economy, stupid. And I don't think these people were voting for Trump because they were so thrilled with Trump. They were blaming the Biden administration for the and when Trump said, "Hey, I'm going to lower food prices and I'm going to lower gas prices," and they believed it. They believed it.
One of the points the Democrats totally missed during the election was that when Trump came in, he inherited the Obama economy. When Obama came in, he inherited the Bush economy. Now, remember this, in 2007, when all the liars' loans about all the real estate and the banking crumbled, and George W. Bush rescued the banks, we were in a huge recession. It was very ugly. A lot of inflation, a lot of trouble. And Obama took that and turned it around. And by the time Trump took office, he inherited a thriving, clear economy from Obama. It was Obama's economy that Trump managed. Trump didn't do anything on his own except make it worse. Now,
and Trump is taking over the Biden.
You know, when the pandemic happened, it tanked everybody all over the world. It tanked everybody. You know, you can't blame Biden for that. You can't blame Trump for it. But the way Trump handled it was horrible, and that's what tanked the economy for And where do Americans forget this? That the pandemic, when Trump was in office, is what killed the economy, and Biden inherited that economy.
What happened in 4 years?
He did his best in 4 years. And when Biden's going out now, more jobs are being created, less inflation is happening. It doesn't make any sense. You see, what the problem is that people believe what they want to believe. Facts don't matter anymore. And you can say anything and get by with it. I mean, look at Facebook has fired all their fact checkers to keep up with all the lies that Musk is getting by with on X and Trump is getting by with on Truth. I'm my God, man. I don't see anything good coming out of it at all. Well, I mean, even when, so what? So the Trump people are going to be gnashing teeth. They're not going to vote for a Democrat because you know what matters to them? What matters more to them than the economy is that there's not any abortion, that the 10 Commandments is in every courthouse.
No. Because wherever in seven of the 10 states where abortion was on the ballot, abortion won. So abortion is one of those issues that, no, people want abortion. Everybody, the majority agrees on that. The problem is they don't seem to remember very long what the economy was like when Trump took over, what the economy was like when Biden took over, and how Biden turned things around. All they're looking at is the short-term, last year and a half or so of the inflation. The prices, went down. They didn't go down, but they stabilized. But they didn't give them credit. And I think with the Democrats during the 2024 election, Harris talked about, we're going to give you $25,000 down payment on a house and all this kind of stuff. she should have been running. She should have been running on what the Biden economy, because the Biden economy had turned things around and getting better. And
she was hamstrung from the beginning. Biden is the reason that Trump won the second time. You know,
well,
I mean,
he never should have run for second. He should have never got reelected, and then cut
should have stuck to his promise in the first place. He was elected in 20. He was elected in
2020. He's a caretaker
because he said he was going to be a one-term president.
Exactly, he should have. But there's something about as Henry Kissinger says, power is the greatest aphrodisiac. Once you've got this feeling of power, you don't want to let go of it. And that's why Trump wanted to get it back, and that's why Biden won for a second term.
You get it for the wrong reasons.
I can't argue that.
Government is there to serve the people.
Sam, how would you feel? How would you feel if you were the most powerful person in the world, and everything you could do almost anything you want to do, and suddenly you were going to lose it? You're going to want to keep it. You're going to want to keep it because it's an incredible. It must be the most incredible head rush ever to feel you're the most powerful person in the world, and you don't want to give it up. And that's the only reason I can think. Why in the world did Biden want to keep running when he said he was only going to be? Because you don't want to give up this feeling of absolute power. It just kind of
he had no clear self perspective.
Whatever. But the fact of the matter is, I think
he was getting senile. Just like it's going to be clear that Trump is going to get senile. Trump will become senile in the next 4 years.
He already is. The thing is, Democrats voted for Trump. If Democrats voted for Kamala Harris, Harris would have won. The problem is a lot of them voted for Trump for a variety of reasons, but the number one reason was the economy. The other thing, of course, was the trans thing. The Republicans spent almost $250 million on ads linking the Democrats to trans rights and this kind of stuff.
And that's another thing about Latin America and Asia. They have had trans people in their societies for hundreds of years. It's never been a big deal.
Every country's had trans people in their societies.
Well, maybe here's the thing. One of the things a lot of folks don't know, and don't remember is that back in the 1950s, on average, 10 to 15% of people, babies, have what they call ambiguous genitals. They are born that way. And after World War II, science had evolved to the point where a child born with ambiguous genitals, they would ask the parents whether they wanted to be a male or a female. And what happened was they made a lot of penises on bodies that had more estrogen, and they created a lot of vaginas on bodies that had more testosterone. And that was a fact in the 1950s. And that's what happens when you see a lot of folks coming out in the 60s and 70s switching gender. And this is a medical fact. This is a biological fact. But in other societies, they let the individual grow up and be who they want to be. But not in this one. This is a puritanistic society. And that's a problem there.
Well, yeah, yes. Well, it's kind of gets way more complex than that. But the fact is that
it's one of the complexities.
That's one of the problems. Our population may be in favor of abortion. Our population may be in favor of gay marriage. I mean, there's that. That was interesting. The entire attack that the Republicans did on Harris had to do with trans. They didn't come out against gay marriage, like same-sex marriage, like they used to do. It didn't become one of their big things anymore. So they've elevated. They find one thing that they maybe have some favoritism. But the thing is, the Democrats, rather than when Harris was asked about that, she says, "Well, I'll enforce the law." That's all she said. She didn't come to defense. She didn't say, "Hey, they're people like say things like you did." They didn't talk about that they're humans and this kind of stuff. We need to protect their rights to jobs and housing and all this kind of stuff. No, she just said, "I'll enforce the law."
Well, yeah, enforce the law when you let Trump get by with it.
Yeah,
if you don't prosecute Trump in the 4 years that he's not president, enforcing the law. What difference is it? That's the problem. The Republicans have no respect for the law, and I no longer have any respect for law enforcers because the Democrats haven't done the job. It's just
Well, yeah, I mean, I will admit, Merrick Garland was a big disappointment. How he should have, the investigation of Trump. He had within 2 years, they should have had Trump in trial and being tried for the January 6th insurrection. They should have had him on trial for the records, the top secret records that he took with him to there. He should have, but he just allowed the thing to go on and on and on and on and on. He should have been. They should have. If Trump had been brought to trial within 2 years, he would not be president of the United States today.
because
A lot of this falls at the foot of Merrick Garland, who was afraid or so timid to sit there and go after Trump. They just released Jack Smith's report, and the report was very evident that Trump could have been tried, and would have been found convicted.
Until now, why wasn't that report done 3 years ago?
Exactly.
There's no reason it couldn't have been done.
Exactly.
I'll tell you why.
It's right,
the Democrats are pussies. The Democrats are the pussies that Trump grabs, okay? That's why. And listen, I'm going to tell you something that I'm hated for by both Democrats and Republicans. That the Republicans hate being revealed and the Democrats hate to admit it. Politics is war. War is hell. The only rule is there are no rules except the ones you bring to the contest. These rules can and will be suspended without further notice. It's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. Now, if you're not willing to get her into the mud and wrestle the pigs who are Republicans, you got no business being in the game. If you're not willing to do everything it takes to do the right thing, to have the power to do the right thing, you have no business in the game at all.
It didn't used to be that way. Back in the 60s and the 70s, politicians were willing to work together. Look at all the stuff.
The last time it wasn't that way. The last time it wasn't that way was during Ike's administration. A lot of people don't understand. When Eisenhower came back, the Democrats and the Republicans both wanted him to run for president. And he chose to run as a Republican, and he was overwhelmingly elected twice. And he did some really, really great things. As far as I'm concerned, he was the last really good Republican president. But then comes our generation, Lanny, in the 60s, this Vietnam War, the assassinations, the economy, the riots changed America forever. That's when the division happened, and it's gotten wider and wider and wider, and it's wider today than it ever has been before.
Look at the things that Lyndon Johnson accomplished in the 60s. They were amazing. And he changed the country with his Great Society and all the civil rights bills and all this kind of stuff. It's after that things that the civility within our Congress began to splinter. But we used to be able to accomplish things like that. You remember, Lyndon Johnson's bills got passed. A lot of Republicans voted for him. That wasn't when we were working together. But
that was
nowadays,
in the day when Republicans were the party of Lincoln, and they were the party of freedom and
what
civil
has
rights.
happened?
It was the Democrats in the South who were the Ku Klux Klanners. Okay, this switched in the 60s. In 1964, the Mississippi delegation, all white, was seated, and the all black delegation overthrew them in the 1964 Democratic Convention. At that point, Johnson said, "I'm afraid we've lost the South forever," and he was right. Because in 1968 was when the shift started happening. In 1960, what's his name? The governor of
Wallace.
Wallace. Yeah, George Wallace created a third party, American Independent Party. I like that anagram. You pronounce it ape. Ape. He created the Ape Party, okay? And he was a third candidate, and he's the last major third candidate to win states. And he won some states. And that threw the election to Nixon. And then by 1972, the parties had totally switched. The racism had gone into the Republican Party, the anti-racists were in the Democratic Party, and it's been that way ever since. But up until the 1960s, let's keep this in mind. The Republicans were the Freedom Party from Nixon. I mean, from the era of Lincoln. They were the anti-racist party. The Democrats were the Ku Klux Klanners. Let's not forget Woodrow Wilson, a Democratic president, welcomed 20,000 Ku Klux Klanners marching down Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
That was the history. But it's all switched now. But the point is, since the 1960s, we have never really been united. It's been divided in one form or another. And you get there's tremendous hypocrisy. The Republicans talk about balancing the budget. Look at history. I'm going to tell you, 3 presidents in the history of the United States have actually balanced the budget. Andrew Jackson, 3 of his 4 years. Lyndon Johnson, his last year in office, not only paid for the Vietnam War and the Great Society, but he balanced the budget. Now, a lot of Republicans say, oh, 1969, that was Nixon's budget. No, the 1969 budget was created by Lyndon Johnson. And then Bill Clinton, we're getting close, aren't we? Bill Clinton balanced the budget 3 times. No Republican president has ever even submitted a balanced budget to Congress.
That's right. Well, listen, speaking about balance, but we have to balance the show, and we're running out of time. We've only got about 60 seconds left. So I want to say thank you all for joining us today on Lanny Sense. I want to say Sam and his usual curmudgeon to be with us here. He'll join us again next week. I hope you'll join us next week as well. Don't forget, every Tuesday at 8 p.m., it's Lanny Sense, the show that leaves no gender behind. Good night.